All right, last video about Vikings. Now, I think I said that the last video, I said it was going to be the last one about Vikings, but I don't know why I said that, because I hadn't finished the show yet, and I wanted to give my final thoughts on it. Now, before we get into some of the discussion of the last few episodes and the last season and all that, let me just try to start on a positive and say that the show as a whole is a great show. I mean, I would definitely watch the first 4 seasons. I mean, I think for the first 4 seasons, one of my favorite shows. I really looked forward to watching it. I binged it, like I couldn't stop watching it at times. It's really good. Now, the last 2 seasons are not so good, and you kind of either decide to watch the last 2 seasons or you don't, you know? Like, I basically decided to finish it. I was still, I have some issues with depression and stuff, so sometimes I get too emotional about these shows, so maybe I'm, like, expecting more from these shows. I guess if you're just somebody that's just a way to pass the time and have some laughs or whatever, you don't care how it ended, or the fact that, like, it wasn't satisfying how people's stories ended, or whatever the case is. But for me, it's not only like kind of like depressing how bad the show got, but it's also just not entertaining because of how bad the writing got and stuff. Like, a lot of just strange things that made no sense to me. So they were still introducing new characters, like in the final season, when it feels like the final season should have just been all about wrapping up the journeys of the existing characters. And I think some of it was like they wanted to kill off everybody. They wanted to kill off so many people that in order to even just have a show while they were killing all these people off, they had to introduce new characters just to fill space and time. I think that's basically what it was, but it just feels like wrong. Like, at the end of the show, the chick that is the queen of Kattegat is just some, like, random person you don't give a crap about that was introduced. It was either at the end of season 5 or actually during season 6, and she never was anybody, even when she was there. And it's just like, this is it? This is like, I'm supposed to be, they have this, like, final scene in Kattegat with her, and I'm like, what is this? This is supposed to be like the final emotional scene of this place that has been the focus of this whole thing. And I'm supposed to feel something about this, and it's just some random ass character because you killed everybody else off, And then there's these people that'll defend it and be like, "That's the point. That's the point they were making. They were making some big point." Like, I don't think so. I think the writers just painted themselves in a corner. I think they just threw together this ending because there really is no point. And it's kind of like that, like, the introduction of new characters and the introduction of new storylines, like even to the last minute, which just don't feel like they add anything to the overall narrative arc of the story. It's just it just feels like a lot of, like, throwing things in that happened in history. They're like, okay, well, there was the Rus who were founded by Vikings. We need to get them in, so they just jam them in there into a storyline, but it doesn't serve any purpose as far as the overall story of the series Vikings. And then like, oh, well, Ivar has to go back to England to get killed because that's where Ivar the Boneless died in history, so we have to rush this last minute trip back to England. And then it's like, I think Harold Finehair, who's known as Harold Fairhair, or, there is a translation, Finehair as well, it doesn't really matter. But he was a big deal in Norwegian history. He's probably a legendary figure. He's probably not real, but, that's the case with a lot of people on the show. But taking it, for what he is, he's a very important person in Norwegian history. And I feel like they kept having these opportunities to give him, like, a glorious death, and they just kept passing it up because I think they needed him to stay on the show because of what I was saying before of they've killed off so many people that they need people just to keep the show going, long enough to end it. And I think that was what happened with Harold Finehair, is they just kept keeping him around for no apparent reason, just because, I don't know, they needed somebody to be around. And then they end up just like killing him off like in a very perfunctory, not glorious fashion, which that particular death struck me as strange. Kind of the way they treated that character the whole time was strange, though. Like, they gave him a certain level of respect, but they always kept him like below the Sons of Ragnar, which I guess is somewhat understandable, because the show is basically about Ragnar and his sons, but that's a pretty serious historical figure, or at least quote unquote historical figure in the legends, in the sagas, to just be treating like that. Like a lot of stuff just seemed rushed. A lot of stuff just felt like unsatisfactory. Like the whole Hitzik, I don't even know what is the proper, is it Vitzik, Hitzik, Hitzark? I don't know. But that character, they never did anything with. They really screwed that character over. Maybe they felt like that actor wasn't a strong actor, and then there's only so many people that you can present as like the hero. I mean, they already had Ragnar, Bjorn, Ivar as like the big hero people, and then they developed Ubba as kind of like the universal, like, we'll have him do things that we wanted to touch on. We wanted to touch on Iceland, so he can go to Iceland, and he can go to Greenland, and he can go to, so he was like the utility guy. And then there was just Hitzik that was nobody, like, and then his ending was not satisfactory. I mean, it's fine from the standpoint of, yes, gradually the Norse converted to Christianity, and they want to show that. And that Battle of Eddington, after the Vikings lost that, the leader of that army, who was actually Guthrum, who isn't even in the show, did convert to Christianity and become, I think he did change his name to Ethelstan. So that's where they were getting that from. Like, they wanted to show that, and Hitzik was the guy there to do it. So there's a certain logic to what they did, but it doesn't make any sense for the character of Hitzik. Like, I feel like when Ubba converted to Christianity, that actually made sense. Like, his personality was the type of personality that would have done that, and would have actually like been sincere about it and become a Christian. And that felt right to me. And then all of a sudden they just backtracked from it. I don't know why they did that. Was it fan response? I don't know. But they backtracked from Ubba doing it. But then they had Hitzik do it, and I thought that was weird. Like, I thought he was like the most Viking of the Vikings. If there's anything I can say about him, I mean, obviously he was kind of just a nondescript character, like I was talking about. But as far as like, I wouldn't have placed him as the guy to become a Christian. I guess the only thing they might have laid the foundation for is when he had that little dalliance with Buddhism. That might have showed that, he had an open mind towards other religions and stuff, but he was pretty hardcore Viking. I think actually Ubba being the one that converted to Christianity would have made more sense to me. But, of course, they had to have Ubba go to North America because they decided that was important for whatever reason. I have more to say. I might make another video. But I'm running late on my workout, and I'm sitting here in the parking lot now, so I'm starting to feel rushed, and then that makes my thoughts not come to me as easily. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let me know if you have any thoughts on it, and I'll probably talk about it more later.